Rich, Tennessee Homestead. How the heck are you today? It's Monday. I get to rant. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of interesting this toward the end of the week, and then they had a lot going on out there. I was watching Tim Pool's IRL podcast, and I really enjoy that. Sometimes. It depends on the guest. You know, some of them put you to sleep. Others are fairly interesting. Cassandra Fairbanks I like. She's a reporter. She does a real good job. They got talking about something that really kind of struck home because I was an adult back then. I was watching the news. I kind of saw it all going on. You know, the Ruby Ridge deal where they went after a guy and, killed his teenage son and his wife accidentally. Then I guess they decided to, and they all say they did it for media coverage because they were trying to get the American people to forget about them murdering people up on Ruby Ridge. Yeah, why is that? If you've got an arrest warrant for a particular individual and you come out there without announcing who you are, things of this nature, you kill this teenage kid, and then a stray round kills his wife, well, why aren't everybody connected to that, including the doggone judge that issued the warrant, ought to be looked at as potential criminals? Why are they special? Because they're law enforcement? Oh no. They need to be held up to the light of course, you got the government investigating the government. I bet most criminals would love laws like that. I'll go investigate myself. I'll let you know if I did it or not. There ought to be a private group of citizens, okay, that have maybe some law enforcement background or training to investigate these things and decide whether the government violated the law and serve them with warrants. But then we moved from Ruby Ridge. The ATF wanted to kind of clear its name a little bit. And what were they going after? Supposedly some illegal gun parts. Same thing they went down to that camp, down to that Davidian compound. Yeah. ATF regulation violations, which we'll get into the Second Amendment. Killed women, children, you name it. Now, every year the ATF lists out the officers that died. A little memorial for them. Officers shouldn't have been there. One. David Koresh ran, and that's who they had the warrant for. He run every day from his compound to town and back. You would think. Now, I've got minimal law enforcement experience. I've, got some time on it. But minimal law enforcement, so maybe I'm not as good as these bright boys. I would have waited for him to take his morning jog. They've done watching him for months. And arrested him either out on the road or when he went to town. Away from the compound, where you knew there was a bunch of guns and a bunch of followers. But that's just me, and like I said earlier, common sense. Killed so many people now. I mean, tear gas is flammable, and they even tried to blame that on David Koresh. Oh, he set the place on fire, really? With all those women and kids trapped. Really? Those were probably people he knew and cared about. Really? Save it. I watched that whole thing and was so irritated through it because you could see the handwriting on the wall of what was going on. And they covered it up and nobody got their hand slapped. Now, about the issue I want to talk about. Between guns, which all these people died because of gun violations, okay? Apparently we're manufacturing illegal parts or something. Okay, fine. Not a big deal. What's an illegal part? Well, our law says, really? How many people are killed every year by drunk drivers? I can pretty much guarantee you that it makes the amount of people who get killed by firearms in this country every year a minuscule figure compared to the amount of people killed by drunk drivers. But Rich, they tried banning alcohol. Yes, they did. And they had to repeal the constitutional amendment that gave them the power to ban alcohol. Why don't you think on that one for just a second? If they want to issue laws, and it's basically because the Supreme Court at one point said, well, the government can't infringe on it by doing this or doing it. The Constitution, there's a meme circulating around out there that I really like, showed the Founding Fathers all sitting around talking about the Second Amendment and going, do you think we need to put more in on the Second Amendment we have here? And one fellow was leaned back in his chair and said, I think shall not be infringed. It pretty much covers it. You would think it would, but it doesn't seem to. Why? Because the Supreme Court said, well, no, we don't think that way. You do know that by the Constitution, what the Supreme Court has to say doesn't amount to a hill of squat. States do. States can tell the Supreme Court, well, you can think that way, and we don't care. It is not a given power under the U.S. Constitution for the federal government to be able to do those things. So therefore, that law, compared to the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, supreme. All other laws that contradict it, or the government tries to write a law giving it power that is not found in that U.S. Constitution, is void, according to the Constitution. I don't care how many void laws they want to go enforce. They're void laws. As long as my state doesn't say, you got to do that, I don't have to do it. Problem is, we've got a lot of spineless states, although they're starting to stand up. God love them. Yeah, and that's what the federal government needs to get told. You can sit up there and whistle Dixie if you want. Doesn't matter to us. Okay? We don't accept it. We've had enough of your lockdowns. Stuff it. A lot of the states have become now grouped together as 2A sanctuary states. I got news for you, Joe. You start throwing a bunch of stuff out there, these states are ready to tell you, we don't care what you wrote. What part of shall not be infringed don't you get? You want to infringe upon the Second Amendment? Very simple, Joe. You draft up a constitutional amendment, put your little law in there that you want put in, and then the states will either ratify it or they'll tell you, no, Joe, we don't agree with you. Here you go. Problem solved. You want the rights to control guns. Write that constitutional amendment. Otherwise, and that's what the American people better start waking up to, if they're not willing to do that, your federal government can't dictate your personal freedoms. Not according to that Constitution. And here a while back, with the bump stock thing, I got a letter when I bought my bump stock for my AR, which, by the way, I don't have anymore, but my bump stock, I got a letter from the ATF saying it was approved when I bought it. And when they decided to turn around and go, never mind, we changed our mind, I didn't see a check in the mail. You want to change your mind after you told me it's okay to buy that product? Yeah, I think you owe me some money, man. That ain't the way it works, is it? America, you better wake up, smell the coffee, and understand something. For a long, 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 long time, we have had illegitimate governments writing illegitimate laws, and we've had a Supreme Court. If you do the histories on the Supreme Court, you watch them get more mealy-mouthed every year, and now look at the mess we got. Okay, won't even hear the cases when half of this country is up in arms over it. You do well to at least listen, not just dismiss it out of hand. Okay, I have no respect for the Supreme Court. I have little respect for this government as a whole. I think it's illegitimate. And for me to change my mind, they'd need to prove that to me. And so far they haven't. What you think on this bit? We are watching this republic get burned down. You'll not have a free America for your children. And these Democrats, seriously? You elected as President of the United States a bumbling fool that every person I've talked to in the medical field has said the same thing. Looks like dementia, maybe Alzheimer's. Of course, they medicate him up pretty good and stand him in front of the teleprompter. And of course, if he steps out of line and does something like, I guess I'm supposed to answer questions now, I'm sure a bunch of cameramen heard over their heads to turn off those damn cameras. That's not the president. But you voted for him, didn't you? Thank you. That tells me one thing. If you elected that man, that bumbling fool, as your leader, Democrats, as your leader. My question to you guys is, can you even tie your shoes in the morning? Because that means he's smarter than you are. Really is scary. I know he's corrupt, more corrupt than the average bear. That's what he's hung around Washington, D.C. long enough. But smarter? Joe Biden's never been smart. His college transcripts show that. Joe Biden's never been an honest man. His numerous catches plagiarizing stuff and making stupid statements and all that and lying, that's common for old Joe. He was a politician's politician. Okay, luckily he comes from a state that, like Nancy Pelosi says, would vote for a glass of water if it had a D on it. I used to say that they'd vote for the jackass themselves, and they've voted for a lot of jackasses. I see them in Congress all the time. But I blame it on us, you and me. We've allowed it. I'm glad to see that a lot of the states now are beginning to roll up their sleeves. I can tell you now that our governor has flatly, if H.R. 1 hadn't died in the Senate, we were ready to tell you to stuff it right in your ear. You are not going to tell us how the state of Tennessee is going to hold our elections. Period. Show me in that U.S. Constitution where you have the authority for that. Because if it ain't there, your law is worthless. Much like all this 2A stuff you tried to pass. If it ain't in that Constitution, it's not within your authority. And I don't care what the Supreme Court says. You see, because the Supreme Court can't even overrule the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Yeah, and I'm an American. I follow that. Good luck, America. Okay? I'm telling you, you're about to lose your republic. You better get serious about this. The Supreme Court's not in your corner. None of them are. It's all about the money. It's all about the power. If you want your children to live in a free country and not something that resembles Red China, you better get busy. You better get active with your state and local politicians, because it may come down to where the states are forced to notify the government, if you don't knock it off, we're going to succeed. This country's in dire straits. As much as, I like to see, because I know a lot of people that are having tough times down here. I hated to see that stimulus bill pass. For one, very little of it is going to help people. Very little of it. Gender studies in Pakistan? Really? What, are we not going to be happy till the whole world is confused on the fact of what gender is? Archaeologists have been digging around in the dirt for a long time now. And every time they find skeletons, it's either a male or a female. Some non-binary creature laying there. Gender is gender. It's the sex of the individual. Period. Nothing to study there. It's female or it's a male. Doesn't matter what you think in your head. It matters what you are. Go get it fixed. Get your hormones injected, sex change operations, whatever you want to do. I don't hold that against you, okay? Do your thing. Anyway, this is Rich, Tennessee Homestead. You need to wake up. Your government's running amok. Well, your government, I don't imagine it is, but this, too many things being thrown on. They think that they know that next election they're not going to probably control the House or the Senate, and so they're pushing for other worth. The only problem is they may push too hard and too far, and spark something that there may be no turning back from. But I see coming down the pike with a lot of different states and what they're saying. Balkanization of this country is very much a reality. It can very much happen because we just not going to tolerate this. Like I said, if they had to do a constitutional amendment to stop you from drinking alcohol, and by the way, nothing in the Constitution says you can get drunk, fall down, and so forth. No mention of alcohol being an issue. It's one of those non-issues. It's not even in the Constitution. But the Second Amendment's very clear. Shall not be infringed. You guys have a great day and a great week, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.